Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. We are here with the third episode of Afsar Ka Safar, wherein we are speaking to a number of officers from various services across the country. So today we have with us an officer from Indian Revenue Service Income Tax, and he is an officer who has achieved a lot. He has a lot of feathers in his cap, and what are those feathers, what all he has achieved, we'll know from him. So let's continue this with him. Let's welcome him. Welcome, Swapnil. Thank you so much for joining us today for this interview. Swapnil, before we start, please tell us a little about yourself.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to come on your channel and let me share my experience with all the students and my, in fact, colleagues also. So I am Swapnil Sharad Kothavade. I basically hail from a village called Shinde, which is in the Nasik district. I have born and brought up in the Nasik district only, and I went on to complete my graduation in Pune. I completed my graduation in engineering from Pune University, and then I decided to write civil services in my third year of graduation. In fact, so I started preparation accordingly, and then after my graduation, I took my first attempt, and in my second attempt, in fact, I got Indian Revenue Services income tax. So that's how I landed into civil services. Prior to that, I also happened to clear exam called as RBI Grade B. Basically, it's an exam taken by RBI Civil Services Board for their own officer cadre. So after I got selected there, I served there for almost 15 to 16 months. And once I got selected into civil services, then I switched over to Indian Revenue Services. So that's my small intro. And beyond that, I have been in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana region since my joining on the field. So it's been my third year now in Telangana, and right now I'm serving as Deputy Director of Investigation in Hyderabad.
Okay. Swapnil, you have, I think, left out a couple of things more in which you have worked. One is Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellow. You have worked there as well?
No, in fact, I wanted to stress upon this fact a little bit later in interview for the reason that many of the civil services aspirants which I keep on talking to ask me about their plan B. So I suggest them that once you start preparing for civil services, the canvas is wide open and you can basically, pick up any brush and try to paint your own picture.
Right.
So, for example, in my own experience, I prepared for, up to my last year of graduation, and then I started teaching also. So, in fact, I was preparing for my civil services, and at the same time, I was also teaching in some of the institutes in Pune. So that allowed me to kind of widen my canvas, and I decided to, appear for a SSB interview for Indian Navy also, and for RBI exam, because I thought they are a good plan Bs for me, and in case I don't make it to civil services in, let's say, one or two attempts, I would decide to do something else in my life, because I believe, this decade, 20 to 30, it's precious decade in one's life. And we should not just merely chase something for which we are spending our years but not getting desired results. So that's why I first went to civil SSB. Then I got selected as a sub lieutenant in Indian Navy out of that process. So the issue was I was not even graduated by the time I got selected in Indian Navy. So I had some time on my hand to gauge upon the possibilities, whether I should join, whether I should decide on some other career path. So I happened to meet a lot of good people in the defense sector and also civil services, and then I decided ultimately to give a chance to civil services because of the age at my hand. Most of the people advised me that because you are quite young and not even 21, you should attempt civil services and then decide accordingly. So I decided not to join defense. Then Prime Minister Rural Development Fellowship also, it was a chance basically to serve in the left-wing extremist districts with the collector. It was basically a fellowship from the government of India, and we were supposed to serve for 3 years. So by the time my joining came, it was also the date of result of civil services. So again, I had the option at my hand, and I had in fact completed my formalities with Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Bombay. They were the focal institute to get that uh, fellowship go ahead. So I had completed my formalities, but by the time I was about to join, my results were in my hand. So ultimately, I decided to then opt for civil
Okay.
service.
Okay. Swapnil, after reading your portfolio, looking at the achievements that you have had, there was a very strong plan B that you had, or that is the impression that I get, or was it that you always wanted to have something or the other in government services itself?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing was very clear. I completed my graduation in mechanical engineering. So by the time I entered into my third year, I knew that this is not something I will be spending my 40, 50 years of life.
Right.
So I knew that my calling is mostly into civil services where there is a interaction with public wherever possible. And if not, at least I have something to do which has direct or indirect impact on the public at large. So doing civil services was always on the cards.
Mhm.
However, I was also aware of the family situation. I was also aware that I have a responsibility on my shoulders. So I was not going to be someone who is just slogging without any results at my hand. So
Okay.
I decided I will keep on attempting. In fact, my group, the whole, aspirants, we came together. We were 5 people together in my room, and all of us were of the same opinion that whatever comes through, we will attempt. And there are two advantages basically. One is once you repeatedly attempt the examinations, you get a feedback regularly at
Right.
the interval of 2 to 3 months that whether you are on the right track, whether you are, let's say, strong in some areas but weak in others.
Right.
And the public service examination is the best examination to test it. So we wrote some MPSC papers, we wrote some defense papers. We used to go to any exam that is coming, just fill form, 100 rupees, and go and appear. It used to give a lot of confidence because we used to clear, I think, almost everything of it.
Okay.
But ultimately, the goal was fixed. So
Oh,
ultimately, all of us landed up in civil services 1 year or later.
great. Great. Tell me, Swapnil, you cleared RBI Grade B. It is a very difficult exam to clear, and you worked there for 15 months. So, what kind of experience did you get from RBI?
Yes. RBI is one of the, I guess, fundamental institutions in India, and I believe it's kind of a secret also. I mean, people who are were seeing it from outside don't really know what goes inside. But
Absolutely.
RBI basically has a central banking function to conduct. That is, they regulate everything under the umbrella of banking world.
Right.
Additionally, they also regulate non-banking financial companies,
Hmm.
and also the major role, which is to print the currency and ensure they are being pumped into the economy at the right time.
Hmm.
So these are the major works that RBI does. Along with that, they have a lot of ancillary works to do, including systems, human resource, etc.
Hmm.
But uh, I would say RBI is one of the best job that this country right
Right.
now in public sector. After my 15 months of experience, I was primarily working with non-banking finance department there, and my job was to identify the non-banking financial companies which are operating in the states of Maharashtra and Goa, but they don't have any kind of affiliation or certificate from Reserve Bank of India. So it was a fantastic job. It was basically kind of an investigative job, and it had a lot to do with the analysis and coordination with multiple departments in the state. So it was a rich experience for me. Basically, just to conclude, it is not just a PO job where you are going into bank and issuing some checks or managing loans.
Right.
It has much to do with the policy matters, regulation, and a macro perspective of the economy in general. So I would advise all the listeners that they should look at this career very seriously. And I mean, it is one of the highest paying jobs in the country also.
Right, right. Another question that I wanted to ask is, since RBI, the syllabus that you have to prepare for RBI exams is very different from what you have to prepare for civil services. So, since you said that you kept on giving examinations, this or the other, was it overwhelming at a point of time, or because of your engineering background, you had maths with you, and what helped you through all these different subjects during this preparation?
Yes. See, competitive examination is basically it's kind of a structured environment, I would say. So there are some foundational subjects and there are some ancillary subjects which switch on as per the requirement of the examination. But the core remains the same. So basically, history, economics, aptitude for that matter. These are the topics which keep on repeating themselves in all examinations. So once your core is pakka, once you are very sure on your foundations, basics, then you are ready to go. Then you just need to make some tweaks as per the requirements of the examination. For example, I think one of the strengths that I derived over a period of time was to grasp the demand of the examination. Just to give example, we should first, let's analyze last 5 years of papers, how the exam has been drafting their question papers, then try to go into the mindset of the examiner and ask yourself what kind of questions are going to be there this year. So once you develop that habit, it's a habit you need to inculcate over a period of time, but definitely it comes to you once you are thorough with it. Then you understand what kind of tweaks in the last 15 or 20 days you need to do in your preparation. So that was my basic agenda, that I will analyze the papers properly. I will understand what examination wants from me, and I'll try to give it the best way possible.
Okay.
And just to conclude the answer, aptitude is something which I think, yes, engineering people do get some advantage, especially in RBI exam, because it's a exam where you need to really have a race against time. So yes, engineering definitely had an advantage for me.
Okay. Now that you have given 3 examinations, can you tell me which one did you find the most tasking examination that you have given?
See, we need to understand when we say tough, on what parameters we are judging the toughness. So I would say civil services is tough for the sheer mental strength it asks from you. To give example, once you appear into prelims, and let's say you have scores which are kind of a borderline score, then for the next 50 days you will be highly stressed. You will not be able to decide exactly whether to focus on the mains or to face the next year's exam by having a long run at the syllabus again. Right. So again, once let's say you get a result and you're cleared, now again the pressure comes. Okay, I have hardly now 30-40 days in my hands and I need to write 9 papers. Even if you are very well prepared, it's my own experience why I couldn't clear in the first attempt. The major reason was I was very slow at writing. Then when I in that also, essay is the first paper in mains examination. I cleared my prelims in my first attempt.
Okay.
But in my mains, the first paper was essay, which I wrote really well, and then there was GS1. That paper really went bad for me, and I was completely lost. So when I came out, I almost cried, and I lost my motivation. That actually impacted my all remaining papers, and I was almost a give up case. So by the time my optionals came, I was like, anyway, I'm not going to clear, so how does it matter? So I was not that serious by the end of 5th day. So the idea is basically, even if I had given my previous year into the whole preparation, those 7 to 8 days period really matters a lot. So civil services is different from other examinations in this perspective, that the period for which you undergo the mental, I would say, the stress, that is unique to the exam. So on that count, it is difficult. But if you ask me on the task of, on the count of syllabus, on the count of a degree of depth that one needs, I think most of the examinations test you on similar syllabus, on similar degree of depth. But UPSC is different only because of the mental pressure and the situation, the way you handle the situation. So I think that's what they expect from us.
So if I've understood it correct, UPSC requires more endurance in terms of time, and RBI, since it from beginning to end it happens very quickly, so you'll come to know about the result also quickly, and so you don't have to endure that stress of whether or not this is going to happen with me. Okay, right. So that brings me to my next question. Swapnil, when you are preparing for this examination, now when we look at your portfolio, you have passed so many examinations, you have cleared so well, but there are people who keep struggling because one attempt, now that 6 attempts have been given in UPSC.
Correct.
People keep feeling, there is a feeling in people's mind that, okay, ye nahi to wo nahi to wo. They keep going till the 6th attempt. So is it good for them to do that, or is it that they should decide in the first go itself that mentally they have to prepare themselves for the to clear in the first go itself, not ये एग्जाम देख लेते हैं फिर नेक्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में देखेंगे. Some people keep feeling कि we'll give the first examination as a tryout and then maybe we'll give the other one. So what is your suggestion to such kind of people?
Yeah. So there are two things. One, there is nothing called an ideal attempt. I have seen a lot of people going for a trial attempt and then ideal attempt. So there is nothing like this. One has to be serious from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, about taking 6 attempts, I would say it matters a lot, from what kind of background you come. Let's say some of the people I have seen come from MBA background, and they have some investments, or already they are part-time directors, or they have some kind of startup going on.
Right.
So they always have a fail-safe mechanism at hand. On the other hand, the people who are just graduates like me, who had nothing else to do, had I come into the employment market after 6 or 7 years of my graduation, nobody would have given me a job. Right. It was a given. So then it becomes a do or die situation for such aspirants. So the golden mean in such scenarios is to have eye on multiple exams in a span of, let's say, 3 years. So one can plan from the beginning that I'm going to give my serious best for this competitive examination in my 3 or 4 years of preparation, and I would also fall back on, let's say, MPSC, or I would fall back on some alternative career choice if this doesn't go well, because everyone knows this competition is getting tougher day by day.
Yes.
And there are a lot of factors which come into play. I have a very good friend who just had a dengue 2 days prior to mains examination. So he was one of the fantastic players in the competitive examination circle, but just because it was his last attempt and he had a dengue, he lost the attempts also. So these kind of things can happen to anyone. And the second thing is, I think people try to undermine alternative careers in their life. I think that is one of the biggest fallacy I have come across. Private sector, state services, banking careers, or for that matter, even startups. Everything has its own charm and its negative. So I would say it is more to do with what I want from life and not what I want to show others. Civil services has recently become a platform for people to, they feel that it's kind of a show-off job. Basically, after I join the services, I'll get a lot of publicity, there will be media, and I'll be in the news 24/7. But I think civil services has much to do with hard work. It has much to do with being behind the curtain and not really before the camera. And it needs a mindset where you are ready to dedicate your life irrespective of what you achieve in terms of this shallow objectives. So I would say one has to look into himself or herself and decide what is best for me, and then decide his career choice.
Right. So you would say that you need to decide as to how many years of your life will you actually give to this examination, fix them, and then get them over with. Whether you pass in this duration or not, that is up to the luck factor and your preparation factor. That brings me to another question, Ki. There are so many people, so many officers who use social media, they use influences, and because of which there is a different kind of idea that people are getting about civil services or officers in general. Do you think that this creates a positive impact on the students preparing, especially? Because in general, if you ask everybody, people have a very good impact, or they feel that officers are working, they're doing a good job, great job. But what impact does it create on the kids who are preparing?
Right. There are two types of motivation in life. One is external and one is internal. As Buddha says, Atha Dipo Bhava. I think these videos or this kind of PR exercises or social media presence of many officers, this kind of creates a motivation which is external and temporary, so to say. People get attracted to the paraphernalia, to the the perks that come along with the services. In some services, in fact, not in all, and they think that that is what going to be the next 40 years of their life, which is unfortunately not true. On the other hand, I have seen most of the successful candidates, which have been my batchmates, my seniors,
Mhm.
they were hardly influenced by such exercises outside. They knew what they are signing for, they knew what they are preparing for, and ultimately, once they are into services, they are happy with what they are doing. The people who get charmed by the external factors like social media, the
Mhm.
problem with that is there is a lot of dejection that comes after they join the service.
Right.
The difference between reality and the truth which is shown on social media, there is a huge difference, and that gap is, I think, suddenly they realize, and then they for remaining part of their services, they start cribbing about it,
Right.
or they have their own fallouts in life. So
Right.
I would say one has to be aware that it's just another job. Added advantage is that it has a public service attached to it, and I think that is what its USP is also.
Right.
So we need to be prepared that I have to serve into let's say rural areas, urban areas. I have to serve with different political masters. I have to serve in different circumstances which may or may not be favorable, and all these social media things will just be short and temporary
Right.
enthusiasm. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me, you have cleared this examination in second attempt. People give another attempt just to get a different service, if I may say so. Generally people give this examination to become an IAS officer or an IPS officer. When you came into the service, you did not give another attempt. So what is it that made you hold on to this service and not give another attempt just to have the service that people imagine is the best service?
Right. No, I would like to, just correct you, ma'am, over here.
Yeah.
After I got selected, I again attempted once,
Okay.
and in fact, I gave 4 attempts
Oh.
in total. And in my second, third, and fourth, every time I got Indian Revenue Services only. But by the time, so by the time I completed my fourth attempt, I was already, had completed my training,
Okay.
and I had also completed my 25 years of age. So when I began, I think 2 questions back we discussed, I
Right.
had a clear plan that by the age I become 25, I will have decided what is my career at least for the next 10 to 15 years,
Mhm.
and I won't be venturing much into other aspects, especially the examination, because as I said, it needs dedication.
Okay.
Now that was one part of my career plan. Second, when I underwent a training of 16 months, I understood what this service offers to me. And because I had a background in finance and banking, this service especially had a lot to offer to me. It's because in Indian Revenue Services, the huge chunk is into the taxation. And in addition, we also deal with something called as Black Money Act and Benami Properties Act, which
Right.
has to do with, the foreign assets which are parked outside by illicit money, and also the assets which are in India in Benami names. So
Okay.
I thought this canvas is really good for me. And I would say civil services, more or less, though the names differ, the core job remains the same. You
Right.
are a supervisory officer, and in some units, you are the original, work doing officer, like investigative profiles.
Right.
But what ultimately matters is whether you are able to take your team along, whether you are able to take the work out of them.
Mhm.
And Indian Revenue Services also offers you deputations in the future. So let's say one is now, I feel I am content with what I have done in Indian Revenue Services, and if I find there is some other administrative opportunity,
Mhm.
then I can also switch on under a central staffing scheme in my future. So when I compared the pluses and minuses, I thought this service offers me everything that I wanted.
Right.
So I would just give a chance to it. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, when you were working with RBI, there is no particular rule which stops you from giving UPSC or any other examination while you are working at RBI. Is that true?
Yes, in fact, every public sector undertaking that you go to work into, nobody bars you from attempting civil services. The only condition is that one need to inform the head of office
Okay.
while filing the form itself. So if you fail on that, then there are some penal actions, or they may not relieve you within time, etc.
Okay.
But nobody stops you from writing examination. Yeah, you can
Okay.
write it.
Even with SSB, for example, suppose you join via that, then is there a bond? Is there a particular time that you have to serve and only then you can leave the service, or that's not true?
Yeah, defense is a different ball game altogether. It needs a dedication and commitment both for a from time perspective also.
Right.
So you have to sign a bond. The difference between the defense services and the other services is that once you enter there are two types of entries. One is a short service commission and one is a permanent commission.
Mm-hmm.
So those who are going for, let's say, short service commission qualify under ex-serviceman category, and they can write UPSC after they complete their tenure in short service commission. So that is one of the entry most of the people also choose to appear into. For that age, the allowable age for the entry is I think 38 in civil services. So you get to see both of the worlds basically. So I think that is one of the options people can choose. Additionally, in defense, those who are of course in permanent commission have they go there by the intent of being there forever. So as long as the question is concerned, those who are into short service commissions and also those who are not in the officer rank have these ex-serviceman opportunities after certain period is spent in the career.
Okay. So there is the age relaxation is also given by the civil services or UPSC for. Right. Okay. So I just asked this question so that anybody who goes through this should also have an idea as to what is required and what is not. That brings me to another question. This IRS service, what exactly, you have said that you are in investigation, you were in investigation branch in RBI as well. So what exactly is that pleases you the most in this service?
Right. So Indian Revenue Services, basically there are two services which goes by the same name. Just to clarify the audience over here, Indian Revenue Services Income Tax and Indian Revenue Services Customs and Indirect Taxes.
Right.
So these two are completely different services, and they administer different laws. They work under different verticals altogether. Okay. So income tax, Indian Revenue Services Income Tax falls under the purview of Finance Ministry and directly under control of Central Board of Direct Taxes.
Okay.
So when it comes to what kind of work goes into Indian Revenue Services Income Tax, there are various functions. One of the functions is assessment of the returns of income filed by assessees all across the country. Right. So it basically means there is a detailed scrutiny that will be taken up for 1 to 2% of the returns that are picked up for scrutiny in that particular year. That is an amazing work. Just to give an example, a direct recruit of let's say 24-25 years goes into the field and has been given power to assess State Bank of India's financials. Okay. So you can imagine the amount of canvas you have, or let's say you have a company with turnover of maybe 20,000 to 40,000, and you are just being given a task to assess whether it is filing taxes properly, whether there are some issues which you can ask them to add the taxes upon, etc. So I think that is something which is very unique and technical also in a way. Okay. So one needs to be. So what charms me from that function is this service offers you a habit of reading forever. This service offers you a challenge to keep yourself updated forever, and I think that is very unique, because even if you jump into supervisory skills, still there are some functions allocated to the supervisory officer, even at the rank of chief commissioner, that they are supposed to have direct interference into these functions. So okay. Unless they're updated, it's very tough for them to opine on something or decide on something. Another function that department does is controlling the TDS deductions all across the country.
Okay.
That function is highly system based, and one needs good smart people who can apply different correlations, different rules, and decide who are the defaulters. Then the investigation is of course one of the most charming profile in the income tax department. Basically this has to do with the search and survey operations that we conduct. This has to do with the in common parlance we call it raids. So all the income tax raids are to be planned by these units, and they generally go on the field, conduct the operations, and come out with flying colors in I think almost every other case. So in addition to that, there are other functions like human resource. You have systems to look after. Income tax department is one of the flagship department in e-governance structure. So we are totally into systems, artificial intelligence, data mining. So I think when it comes to a person with a little bit of technical background and a huge interest into analysis of data, this service offers you infinite opportunities. So all these things come together when you decide, whether you like it or not. And just to summarize, as of now, in my, since 2015 till 2020, I have almost for 90% of my career has been into investigative profile in income revenue services.
Okay.
So every time we conclude a raid or every time we complete a search operation, if you are able to crack the modus operandi of that particular business, the way they have evaded the taxes, the way they have planned their business in such a way that they get to somehow circumvent the laws of the land, that gives you a kind of satisfaction or eureka moment which no other job or work profile can give you. Right. So I think it has a lot to do with your brain. It has a lot to do with your creativity and your continuous upgradation of skills. So yeah, that's what attracts me into this service.
Okay. Whenever you said raid, the first, I can assure you that you must have imagined what I must be imagining. Ajay Devgan's movie was the first thing that came to my mind. Okay, raids are conducted. So right. That brings me to my next question. How much political interference does this service get?
Right. I would be happy to go on record to say this, that the political interference is very less.
Okay.
Even if it is there, it would be at the top management level, but nobody till date in my service has ever called me or pressurized me to do something which is not in the four corners of law. So that actually gives you kind of independence and the way government actually functions. There are some in media or in news reports you might be reading a lot which is adverse, but being an insider, I can frankly tell you, no, there is no such political interference at all. Okay. It's a very we can work independently. We can make our decisions with frankly. There is no one going to call you and tell you that you cannot do this or you can do this.
Right. Tell me what kind of on the home front, what kind of time are you able to give? Whenever people think of government services, they think 9 to 5 job hoga, jayenge office mein, they'll come back. It is a leisurely life. They'll get big homes. So, would you like to break that bubble, or is it true?
No, not at all. It's not true at all. Especially income tax department. I would say we work on a very thin manpower compared to other departments. The major reason is basically the amount of digitalization we have, and also there are historical reasons also to it. But the independence also comes up with the I would say one need to give away his or own freedom if one wants to become an independent decision maker.
Right.
So see, we are supposed to be available 24/7. As I said, when it comes to raids, for example, it's a fantastic work, and we are never, let's say if it's not my case, I would never be told where I'm going, what place I'm going to supposed to enter, etc. I would just be called at a designated place at a designated time, and we will be given this information hardly 20 or 18 hours before, or sometimes it is hardly 6 hours before also. So one needs to always be available on phone. Now that is one of the profile I'm talking about. Coming to other profiles, one of the unique feature of income tax department is we work on time barrings, we work on deadlines, and these deadlines are statutorily defined deadlines. So one cannot just prolong his decisions. So we are bound to take decisions by the statute itself within a period of limitation. Therefore, there is a lot of stress that goes into. There is, one may not be able to grasp or understand everything in and out of the case within 6 or 7 months. So that can tell you what kind of work profile we have, and that also tells you the amount of let's say speed that which the disposals happen in income tax department. So I think yes, when it comes to personal life, there are some kind of sacrifices we need to make. But I mean, if one is as one grows into the service, one learns better how to manage his work and family life together.
Right. Tell me, since you said about rates, till what time in your career would you be doing this? Like from the beginning till say 10 years or 15 years of your service, you will be doing this and then you will be into a desk job, or throughout your career, you can be on field and, depending on where the posting is, you can go to a desk job or this.
Yeah. So income tax department, I'll just explain the hierarchy. So the direct recruits IRS, when they join, they are recruited they are designated as assistant commissioners and deputy commissioners.
Okay.
After the promotion in the 9th year, they become joint commissioners and additional commissioners subsequently. So assistant and deputy commissioner rank is the rank which is at the cutting edge of the department. So in those 8 years, we get to plan the rates, we get to execute them on the field. Okay. Once we move into the supervisory role, that is joint commissioner and additional commissioner rank, there the powers are to give the permissions to conduct such kind of raids.
Okay.
Now there is another layer called as director of investigation or commissioner of income tax rank, which is the next promotion after additional commissioner, which comes about 18 to 19 years of your service. So at that point, you become kind of a head of department from you have administrative functions, you have supervisory functions, and they also have the powers to, allow you to conduct this kind of invasive, powers. So be it raid, we also have something called a survey. So survey is semi-raid, you can say. Search is the, outright weapon to cover everything about the SSC. So basically, to give your answer in a short manner, at the level of assistant commissioner and deputy commissioner, one gets to actually test the field. But as you move up the ladder, you will be involved into this practice or in this job, but in a different way. So you will be monitoring things. But I have seen a lot of officers, even at the senior rank, they change their profile. They go to the field. They will act as if they are customers, or they will also have some kind of reiki done by themselves. So it's all about passion and how one needs to get involved into the work. So when it comes to supervisory roles, it is up to their own self whether they want to get involved directly or indirectly. But yeah, they are involved even at the ranks of commissioners. So yes, service ensures that there are ample of cross checks and balances, and there is a good amount of guidance given to the junior officer.
Okay, that brings me to another question. When you are conducting these raids or in other businesses as well, do you interact with the other services, say police service or other services during these times?
Absolutely. Income Tax Act gives us a wide power to requisition the service of any other central government officer or police. So basically, let's say there is a sensitive case which is politically sensitive, or there might be a reaction from the people, local population. So in such cases, we ensure that we have ample of protection. In fact, I have seen department taking CRPF in some cases because the sensitivity of the case is too high.
Right.
So yes, this happens. Additionally, when we talk about coordination, it is not only during the search or during the raid. It also starts before the raid and after the raid. There is a forum called as REIC, Regional Economic Intelligence Cooperation Body. So this body basically has all the important law enforcement agencies of the country, and these bodies sit at the regional level, zonal level, and share their intelligence. So let's say GST has found out some scam or some good case, they will share the intel with income tax, police, EOW, so on and so forth. So this kind of cooperation really goes into the field, and that helps us to basically cover the cases from multiple angles. So yes, coordination is there during the cases also, and even before the planning starts.
Okay. Okay. That brings me to a very personal question. Tell me, you are from IRS. Do you think that the spouses, especially the women, they if they are from the services that from civil services, that makes your job easier, or is it that if they are in a private sector or if they are not working, makes your life much more peaceful?
So actually, it depends on person to person. But in my case, I can tell about my own case. Both of us are working. My
Okay.
spouse is working in Provident Fund Department as Assistant Commissioner.
Okay.
The major challenge that we face or we have faced previously also is we don't get posted at the same place often. So
Right.
that makes it tough to manage the family life.
Right.
But we do have spouse claims. We can, claim that government may post us at the same place, but it doesn't happen always in a fit of moment. We need to, for example, if I get transferred,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be a right time for her to get transferred because of her own service conditions.
Right.
So then we need to give some time. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And because both of us have all India presence, our departments, the transfer could be anything from north to south or west to east.
Right.
So that is the major challenge, I would say, to be together. So we try to make most of the togetherness whenever we are there together. On the other hand, in senior positions, what is going to happen is most of the places would be metros or at least tier 2 or tier 1 cities. So in those scenarios, I guess it might become much easier than the present conditions to be together. So I'm looking forward to it, but I would be able to answer this maybe after 10 years or 15 years.
Okay. Tell me, do you have postings in Northeast and trouble states as well? And I know you haven't worked there till date, but can you throw some light as to what kind of working conditions or what kind of difference would that kind of posting make to your own, personality and the way you understand things?
Right. I missed your word, but I think you are asking about northeastern states or southern states.
Northeastern states and Jammu and Kashmir. I mean the troubled states.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So see, income tax department do have presence in northeastern states as well as state of Jammu and Kashmir, which is now Union Territory, of course. So the fact is, the administrative challenges that, let's say, a person from IS or IPS space may not be directly a challenge for us, because we don't, let's say, have to function with every person that is there in the state. Our main interests lie with the taxpayers. So in these regions, in these territories, the taxpayer presence is a little bit less.
Okay.
So less number of basically officers get posted there, but we do have presence. And I have personally been there in my training period. My on-job trainings were one of my center was in the northeastern states, and I can tell you the officers there are doing fantastic jobs. And especially the challenges there are, there are terrain challenges, then awareness challenges. People over there don't have kind of the regular business activities which we have in other parts of the country, especially the financial services or the so-called white collar jobs. There it mostly has to do with agri or agri-allied businesses.
Right.
And another is the natural resources are very the presence of natural resources is ample. So mining activities are also there, subject to the state regulation. So these are the major areas where our officers work.
Okay.
Whether they have challenges, yes, they do have. For example, Jammu and Kashmir, whenever there is a lockdown imposed or there is kind of a trouble happening in the state, the officers have to still discharge their functions because of the time limits that are posted by statute on us.
Right.
So I have seen officers, going to the offices even in the troubled times when outside there is violence going on. And I think that is as good as working in any other troubled department which is taking on the bullets direct.
Okay. Tell me, when you spoke about these regions, when you said that these people go through a lot, is it after every 2 years, just like in army or any other services, they have a posting wherein 2 years they'll be 2 or 3 years they'll be posted in a peace area, and then they go to a troubled area. So is that kind of compulsory posting in a troubled area for you as well?
No. Basically, our department doesn't differentiate between postings on this particular aspect at all. Okay. So therefore, this issue doesn't arise at all. Okay. However, we have something called as deficit regions and surplus regions. So basically, the idea is that we know that Indian economy is not have its equal presence in all the territorial jurisdictions.
Right.
So if you take example of let's say Bombay, so we need a reasonable amount of manpower in Bombay because of the sheer load of the work as well as the amount of revenue it generates.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, we can take example of some states which are not so good in the revenue generation capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So there we need not put all our manpower in the beginning.
Okay.
So that is why we have some states which are deficit. So which means that they have some sanction strength which is not being pulled completely because that has been diverted to the states where it needs more.
Okay.
So some people over a period of time get posted to deficit region and they are expected to widen the tax base there. They are expected to have innovative investigations there and creatively bring the more tax into the kitty. That's how we differentiate basically the deficit regions and the surplus regions.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That brings me to the end of this interview. Before you go, please tell us one advice that you would, you have said a lot about how to prepare, or how to go about it, what do's and don'ts, but still last advice to the people who are preparing.
Yeah. I would say be sincere, especially when it comes to preparation. I would say one has to understand what are his limitations and what are his strengths. And at the same time, one need not lose confidence in himself. I will just give my own example. Even a small failure or let's say a success never changed us, any of us who were preparing simultaneously. We knew we are going to end up in the services sooner or later. So I would say have confidence, be sincere, be polite, and just attempt everything. That is my advice to everyone. Attempt everything in a focused fashion. You will definitely end up in the service of your choice.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to see you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Post COVID, definitely we will meet. And I would like to interact more with people on your channel, maybe with a different subject on a different topic on a later date.
Yes. Thank you so much.